Every single night, somewhere in the world, a U.S. military officer is staring at a map. Not just any map. A map that divides the entire planet into zones of American military control. 6 commands, 195 countries. One question that should keep you awake. Who gave one nation the authority to plan security for the entire world? And more importantly, is it actually working? Today, we go inside the Pentagon. We follow the chain of command, the trillion-dollar war machine, and the global strategy that shapes every conflict you've seen on your screen. This is how America plans global security, and why the rest of the world can't ignore it. What is the Pentagon? You've heard the name, but do you know what actually happens inside those 5 rings? Built in 1943, the Pentagon is not just a building. It is the nerve center of the most powerful military force in human history. 26,000 military and civilian personnel, 17 miles of corridors. Decisions made inside those walls have changed the fate of nations. But here's the real question. How does a single institution coordinate military strategy across 6 continents? The answer is the Unified Combatant Command System, a structure so vast, so complex, that most people have never heard of it. AFRICOM, Africa. CENTCOM, Middle East and Central Asia. EUCOM, Europe. INDOPACOM, the Indo-Pacific. NORTHCOM, North America. SUTCOM, Latin America. Each command has a 4-star general. Each general has authority over every U.S. military asset in their region. Every ship, every drone, every special forces unit. Now ask yourself, when you see American troops in Iraq, drones over Pakistan, or warships near Taiwan, who ordered that? It comes from these commands. But commands don't operate alone. They answer to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the highest-ranking military officer in the United States. And the chairman answers to only one person, the president. This chain of command sounds simple, but in practice, it is anything but. Every few years, the Pentagon releases a document called the National Defense Strategy. It's not classified. You can read it, but most people never do. And it tells you something shocking. The United States military is not just defending America. It is defending what Washington calls the rules-based international order. Translation? A world where American power, American values, and American interests remain dominant. But here is where it gets complicated. Because 2 nations, China and Russia, have looked at that order and said, no. The Pentagon has a term for China. They call it the pacing threat. Not an immediate enemy, but the nation that is closing the gap faster than anyone expected. China has the world's largest navy by ship count. It has hypersonic missiles that can evade U.S. defenses. It has military bases in the South China Sea built on artificial islands. And it has Taiwan, the island that both Beijing and Washington consider a red line. The Pentagon's response? The Pacific Deterrence Initiative. Billions of dollars pumped into bases in Guam, Japan, and the Philippines. New missile systems. New alliances like AUKUS with Australia and the UK. But here is the uncomfortable truth. For the first time in decades, American military planners are not sure they would win a war over Taiwan. Not quickly, not cleanly. While China is the long-term challenge, Russia is what the Pentagon calls the acute threat. The danger that is here, right now, today. Ukraine changed everything. When Russian tanks crossed the border in 2022, NATO was suddenly relevant again. The Pentagon accelerated weapons shipments. Intelligence sharing expanded. New troops deployed to Eastern Europe. But Russia has something that keeps Pentagon planners awake at night: the largest nuclear arsenal on Earth. Over 6,000 warheads. Every decision in Ukraine, every weapons system transferred, every sanction imposed, the Pentagon calculates how close to the nuclear threshold are we. And then there are the others. Iran, a regional power with ballistic missiles, proxy networks from Lebanon to Yemen, and a nuclear program that has crossed threshold after threshold. North Korea, a regime with proven nuclear weapons and intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of reaching the American homeland. And non-state actors, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and their affiliates, who don't need an air force or a navy. They need recruits, ideology, and the internet. The Pentagon must prepare for all of these simultaneously, with a budget that, while enormous, is not unlimited. How does the Pentagon actually plan? Not just with soldiers and ships, with something far more powerful: information. Every year, the Pentagon runs hundreds of war games, simulations, scenario exercises. They model a Chinese invasion of Taiwan, a Russian move into the Baltics, an Iranian attempt to close the Strait of Hormuz. These aren't video games. They involve real commanders, real intelligence agencies, and real consequences, because the lessons learned become real strategy. And feeding into all of this is the intelligence community. The CIA, the NSA, the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency. Satellites watching enemy movements in real time. Cyber units probing adversary networks. Human intelligence assets embedded in the world's most dangerous places. The United States spends more on defense than the next 10 countries combined. In 2024, the Pentagon budget exceeded $850 billion. Where does it go? Personnel, paying, training, and maintaining 1.3 million active duty troops. Procurement, buying the next generation aircraft, ships, and weapons. Research, developing technologies that don't exist yet. AI-powered drones, directed energy weapons, hypersonic missiles. But here's a question that critics ask loudly. Does spending more money actually create more security? Or does it create more reasons for adversaries to spend more, triggering an arms race that makes everyone less safe? America's greatest military advantage is not its aircraft carriers or its nuclear weapons. It is its alliances. NATO, 32 nations committed to collective defense. The Five Eyes, the most sophisticated intelligence-sharing network ever created. AUKUS, the Quad, bilateral agreements with Japan, South Korea, Israel, and dozens of others. No other power on Earth has this network. Not China, not Russia. This is the force multiplier that Pentagon planners count on when they calculate American power. So, is the Pentagon's global security plan working? The honest answer is, it depends on what you think security means. If it means no great power war in 80 years, perhaps. If it means a stable, peaceful world where smaller nations can choose their own destiny, the record is far more complicated. The Pentagon plans for a world where American power remains the defining force. But the world is changing. China is rising. Russia is pushing back. The global South is asking questions that weren't asked before. The real question is not just how the Pentagon plans global security. The real question is, whose security? For whom? And at what cost? That debate, that question, is one the entire world is having right now, and it will shape the next 100 years of human history. If this video made you think differently about how power actually works in the world, then this channel is for you. War and military history brings you the real stories behind the conflicts, the strategies, and the decisions that shape our world. No propaganda, no simple answers, just the history and the hard questions. Subscribe now, hit the bell, because the next episode is going to take you even deeper inside the machinery of global power. And share this video, because knowledge like this should never stay hidden.